Right, is this working? I hope it is. Hello there. I'm Tony Pirate, and for a bit of a change tonight, I thought I would show off how I play or how I run Star Wars RPG, not Final Fantasy, FFG for FFG's Age of the Empire Star Wars RPG on Foundry, which I thought would be kind of fun. I've had a couple of conversations with people online who asked about it, and I did a bunch of work on it, and I thought it could be entertaining. So yeah, here we go. I'm just going to check to make sure there's no couple of places I've told that might be interested in it, might want to have a look. Just going to type something here. And yes, let's have a little look. See, so Star Wars, or FFG Star Wars, which is comprised of several books which were out of print but are coming back in print. So here's one of them, Age of the Empire. It's 3 core rule books set in the Star Wars universe, and it uses a dice system which is quite unique, and some people find it a little off-putting. I think it's fantastic, and I'll explain why if anyone's interested. And I also, so there's 3 books. Age of the Empire, which is kind of like your Han Solo, Mandalorian type stories. Force and Destiny, which covers a lot of Force and Sith, and I could almost say this would be like Old Republic sort of era, would probably suit best. And there's Age of Rebellion, which is, as you can imagine, about being a player character in the rebellion. And I don't have that book because I ain't got it yet. The books themselves repeat the core rules across all 3 books, which is kind of annoying in my opinion, and then they add class specific, monster ship specific stuff, which is fine. So I just sort of show how this all works. And now Foundry is a virtual tabletop. I'm just gonna full screen it, make it look a little prettier. So Foundry is a virtual tabletop that you can buy for $50. It's a one-off purchase, there's no subscription fee. Once it's bought, anyone can join your server, and the software itself works really well. One-off license forever. And if you think $50 is a lot, then get your players to chip in or get them to buy something for you. I don't know. It's worth it, I think. There are other platforms out there, but I prefer this one. One of the things that's kind of a pain is that you need to deal with, you can enable universal plug and play, but in doing so you may still need to mess with your own router in order to have the system allow players to connect. If you can figure out a role-playing game software, you can look up a manual for your router and tell it how to allow people to connect. It shouldn't be a massive problem. The other option is you use some of the hosting services out there. I don't know much about them. I believe one of them is called Forge. There are some pluses and minuses to that. The advantage is the system's always up, so players can log in and check stuff if they want. The downside is that it costs you money each month, and you have to do a kind of a lot of interaction with the service to upload stuff, whereas I never do any of that. I have it all on my system. All of my players are local to Wellington, so we have a pretty good connection all around, I would say. In this, I have a couple of different worlds. I have a Call of Cthulhu world, which I built for a series of games I ran, which was pretty fun, and I had a pretty neat. I was pretty pleased with how that all ran. But we're going to have a look at Pocket or Two, which is my my world for Star Wars. And when you set up a world, you get to set lots of background art and stuff, and I'm almost certain that this will cause issues, and I'll end up having to. I don't know, this game will end up being, this whole thing will end up being jolly taken down by YouTube or something for being too bad, too mean to the copyright system, for all I know. So it's pretty common to have a kind of splash screen, and that's what I've got here, that players can, when we log in, we often start here, and if I make it active, I think it's active. Yeah, you might just be able to hear the music in the background. is actually some kind of Star Wars song out there that's been slowed down, and I just really like it. So, I mean, for all of my assets, I just lift liberally off the internet because I'm not charging anyone. It's our own private game. Doesn't really matter. So Foundry, if you want to know how Foundry works, it's probably best to watch other videos on it. What I want to talk about is how I use the system, in case that's of interest to people, really, and some of the cool things I think I've done. It's probably worth saying, and starting with the mods that are out there. I really like messing with mods. I always have, and there are a lot of them available to me through the system right now, and I have turned on quite a few of them. Some and if I was actually go to manage modules, or this list here, some of them are there solely for my use in sort of Call of Cthulhu games. But in this case, this is what I'm running for Star Wars. So ambient doors, that just allows me to change door sounds, and I'll show you why I've done that. Combat utility belt, I'll probably show off at some point. It allows a kind of an easy pop-up for players to interact with if they want to use their skills. And dice tray and dice so nice, they are the very common ones that everyone uses that handle dice rolling, which I'm sure we'll get to see. FFG Star Wars enhancements, this is a mod that allows sort of effects, space effects, shooting effects. Hey, there's Alpha City. And other stuff that goes on is FX Master, which adds some special effects. Some of these are required. The Genesis minion counter is a kind of a pretty low-level module that allows numbers to appear over minions, which is important in Star Wars. GM notes kind of speaks for itself. And what else is going on? So there's some animated assets that may or may not work. I don't know for some of these things. That's a required one. Lock view is kind of broken for me. So it doesn't allow, well, what it should do is it should allow you to lock the view of your scene, and I'll show you that as well, so that the players can't move and adjust it like this. For me, it's broken, and it's very, very frustrating. I don't know why that is, but in general, it should work for most people, and I think that's really nice for Theatre of the Mind style games like this is. Maestro allows some sound effect related stuff. Monk's scene navigation, that's what gives me all my scenes at the top of up here, and allows me to easily click through what's available. And in this way, if I want to find something particular, so in the library, I know I've got some good scenes in the hangars, I can just flick over to them, which I quite like. Also available, I've got this mod called Party Resources. And what I've actually changed it to is something called, where is it? Party Resources here. It's had an update, so the name used to be called, I'll have to look it up. I called it something more appropriate for the setting we're in for Star Wars, and across the top you can see this little hotbar of resources that my party has to use and worry about, and you can customize that quite easily. I might mess with that later to show you. It's pretty fun. PDF Foundry allows you to pull in PDFs. Permission Viewer allows me to see very easily who can see what files in here. So if I have like all these references, so if my players are looking, don't watch this, I can see which of these are shared with players, to what level they can look at them, and stuff like that, which is handy. Pings just allows you to ping the map, pretty boring. Pop out, there are, if I wanted to read something, I could actually, if I wasn't in the client, if I was a person logging in the browser, I could click pop out and it would make that little window pop off to another screen, so they could have their character sheets off on a second screen if they wanted. Quick search, so I can press Control Space and I could look up something really quickly, and then if I wanted to, I could import it. So there's a whole process for setting up the actual game system. I'm not qualified to speak to it. It is a little bit horrible. You have to follow guides on the system's wiki page quite closely, and I'm not even going to talk about it anymore. There's guides out there. It was a pain, and I don't remember how to do it properly, but quick search is helpful because it allows you to pull in all those resources that you've imported. Sequencer is a thing to allow you to jump. I haven't really got it set up. You can do a little, You can create a scene which is like a hyperspace jump. It was kind of cute the first few times I did it, and then I promptly haven't used it anymore really because it's just not needed. Smart target, I can't remember what it does. Status icon counters, I can show you that one as well. Tidy UI just makes things a little cleaner, I think, or maybe it makes it actually a little cleaner here because some of these menus can be a bit ugly by default. Token action HUD, cannot remember it all. Token magic does some stuff I don't remember either. Torch allows me to do some different kinds of light effects, I believe. And trigger happy does... Oh, trigger happy allows me to create items within a scene that are clickable or that do particularly interactive things, and I think I can show that off. So that's a kind of mod space. None of them are massively required, although obviously the dice one is really nice because then you get to have little dice tools like this, and you get to hit roll and whammo, you can see what's going on, which is cool. A thing I really like is I've got this macro here called Pool Party. And is it actually in my mods list? It must be. Pool Party. A Pool Party is, but it doesn't have any settings. So Pool Party is really, really, really useful for Star Wars. It's a mod that allows you to see what the dice pool is that other players or the players are building. So when you tell them, oh, I need you to roll your so you got a player. Let's pull out dash, and I want you to roll your ranged heavy skill. So they click on it, and then you tell them, okay, so it's really stormy and cold out there, so you need to have setback dice, and they're like, well, I'm going to aim twice, so they get 2 of those, and then you're like, yeah, you need to upgrade the difficulty on that because the person you're fighting is a badass, and it's really easy for them to get these dice wrong. If you hit Pool Party, you'll get the players that are in, you'll see their current dice pool in icon form, and you can go, yep, that looks right, and then they can roll. So it's absolutely magical. It may or may not be in the mod system. You may have to get on the Discord and ask for it, but Pool Party is, I think, pretty much required. It should be built into the game system mod, and it wouldn't surprise me if it is one day. So the game system mod itself, this FFG system is pretty sweet. Yeah, it's Star Wars FFG. So 33 active modules, that's a bit ridiculous. So how do I go about building things? The first thing is I have a lot of scenes, and the way I like to do scenes is generally pretty, I guess you could say, it's like theater of the mind. So we start here typically, and this is the starting station. They're all at Queen Station, Hut Space. And then they've traveled around, and one of the things I have is a setting or a scene just for the ship. So this is the Firespark, which is a TR-410 Corellian tanker, which is a player design ship I saw on the internet and I thought was awesome. In fact, I can even show it to you because it exists as a player craft here. It looks just awesome. I reckon this dude on the internet, whose name has escaped me, he did a really good job of concepting this thing up. And the idea is that it hauls fluids. It has ventral and dorsal guns. It has a pod off to one side, very Corellian looking, and a big central storage tanker type system. And the joke I have with the players is the Hut who loaned it to them sort of teased them and says it's an excrement hauler. So it's a real crummy ship. And I gave it to them with a few flaws, so it wasn't a great ship when they started. They're busy trying to save money to get a better one because I keep telling them how bad this ship is. I wouldn't say it's that bad. It's mostly a story item. They've had a few small gunfights in it. I need to do something about that, give them something better in due course. But for now, they're crawling around in this crummy thing. So I have all these scenes. Yeah, so here's one for the ship, and in this I have a deck plan, which sometimes is useful. Where is it? Oh, have I not turned on the thing? Firespark, deck plan, configure, lock view, no. Lighting, unrestricted vision. What have I done here? Why is it not showing it? Token vision, fog exploration. That seems weird. Where is my map? Hut Space, are you going to work? Yeah, so I have a map for Hut Space. This is from Old Dog Games. Look up Old Dog Games. Here's some really cool little resources for the Hut Space and for playing Star Wars games. They were designed for the Blades in the Dark space game series. Can't remember what it's called. Blades of the Dark? No, not Blades of the Dark. Old Dog Games. You'd have to look it up. So anyway, he made the maps and his resources for that system, but I really like it just as a useful map for us as well. I think it's quite clean, and one of the things I have done is created a lot of resources for it, which we'll probably get to. So deck plan, goodness knows, activate. I have sound effects for most scenes as well, really basic ones. Token vision, no, it should be fine. Track the expiration, no. Okay, that's really weird. I feel like maybe the file is corrupted, but anyway, it's meant to be quite a detailed map. But I've got these little soundtracks running. Hey Moofa, and there, as you can see, I've got some background tracks. In here I've got Space, which has made a ship background, a silence, beep, and radio chatter. You can see them playing. The ship background's a hum I stole off YouTube. The silence beep is I found some beeps and made a 2-minute track of spaces, like just silence and then a few beeps. I did the same with the radio chatter, and now they all loop. But because they're all different lengths and times, it sort of the looping and the simultaneous playing means they all come and go at different times. So you might be able to hear in the background the odd beep and the odd bit of radio chatter, and I just think that's pretty fun. So that's the kind of space scene, right? The Fire Spark, which is the ship. I have a bunch of just random star fields and bits and bobs for the players. It looks like we've used some of these already. And this is if we have some kind of encounter in space I want to throw together. And I have a few other scenes which I've just dumped in a library. So we had this planet called Bunta, and I really like this style of art if I can find it, this kind of light concept stuff, because it's quite theatre of the mind. I try and use that as much as possible. So hey, for everyone who's just joined, or like one of you, I'm just showing off how I run Star Wars FFG in the Foundry system. And here's just a couple of NPCs that the players had to deal with, and then they came to this location where there was a bit of a fight. These are the 3 of the players, and their friend Zalbaka, who is a Wookiee, his little combat droid / pit droid friend Dumby, who he wears as a pauldron, like sort of shoulder armor, which I thought was kind of cute. And who else is here? And there's some other NPCs, so it's kind of irrelevant. Mostly I do theatre of the mind, with a bit of drawing now and then, and sort of the bar where they had a big bar fight scene. So that's a kind of library. And if actually I go to the bar, activate, there'll be some sound effects now come through. So for all cantinas, I have a pub ambient sound effect, and then if I want to, I will hit cantina music and I'll just hit play. I'm not going to do that because I'm worried it's basically going to get me lots of copyright strikes. Probably still will anyway, but as you can imagine, if there's a band playing, I hit play and then these songs just start playing in the background. If there isn't, then I've just got these pub sound effects I lifted off YouTube. So as you can see, quite theatre of the mind. And then I've got some other ones. That one's apparently empty, where I have just random scenes in case I need them. There might be some wind noise in the background there. Occasionally there'll be some other bits and bobs you'll hear, because I do like to try and have soundscapes. So I just want to show you lock view. So right now I can zoom in and out and pan around, which is super annoying. I shouldn't be able to do that. This mod lock view. Okay, so I'll just show you ambience. So there we go, hangers sound effect. Hangers have just some space ambience I found. So lock view should in theory force all of the players to have like a forced initial view. Okay, like I can sort of tell it here, force view, and then players shouldn't be able to scroll off the screen, but they still can, and it drives me batty. It's a known bug with the system, but what can you do? So yeah, I can still move that around. I've even set it up. There's some user settings you can mess with, but to say who is or is not controlled by the mod, but I can't get that to work. So other systems, here's a map for a ship that they boarded. One of the things I did was I created icons for an A scene for each of the dice, these bad dice. We just call them purple dice. And every time the players rolled one, I basically dragged the icon onto screen and I had kind of a decision that when they hit 15, a Star Destroyer would turn up. So they had a kind of a timer running. And they didn't really know what the timer was. They just knew that nothing bad was happening to them every time they rolled threat. Every time they rolled threat or a fail, every time they rolled threat, an icon came up. And they were like, oh, this is clearly counting down to something. What's going on? And they got very worried, which was quite entertaining. And when it hit 15, Star Destroyer turned up, and they all got freaked out and ran away. I don't often do combat scenes with maps and moving around and all of that. I just find it a little, it just doesn't really suit the spirit of fun of FFG Star Wars. To me, the joy of FFG Star Wars is in telling stories where the players have a lot of the cinematics feel of it. If I put a dude in this room here and there's a bad dude and she's right here, then their brains stop working. They just think about cover and distances. They don't think about telling cool stories about, they fired a shot and some weird thing happened, depending on the dice, because the FFG dice do encourage you to do weird things. What does the clocks mod do? Mufa? Oh, use a clock. Oh, yes, I know what you mean. It's the kind of like a mod for Blades in the Dark, right? And you can have like sectors kind of fill up over time. Yeah, I could do that, but I thought this kind of tied it really nicely to the system. Like they could see those physically on screen get added and started worrying about what they meant, because they know that these are bad dice and that would make them worried. So, you can actually see Combat HUD come up here. So if I click on this guy, I can see the option to use like a blaster pistol, and then I can activate the skill. So the players know that they can, check their skills and do stuff. Mostly they just use it for their weapons to make it easier to access the weapons. And I'll show you some of that, how that works. Just other scenes. One of the things I have used as well in terms of talking about scenes is one of these cheap little Wacom tablets. I'll just make sure you can see it. It works quite well with the scene here. So what I did on this scene was, the idea was that this was supposedly like kind of like what was it? It was making proteins. It was kind of like a yeast protein facility that sucked stuff up from underneath the ice cap liquids, and then this massive ice cap was here, and they were off to extort the locals for protection money. And in this case, I was able to draw like, okay, this kind of just to give them a sense of what was going on. And of course it don't want to work just when you want it to work. Oh, now it works. Yeah, fine. Control Z. I had them say there's basically like 3 landing pads, and they have like these little pathways. That's terrible, but you sort of get the idea, to a thing. And then there's some large doorways in the thing, so in the dome. So that gave them like a kind of a visual or a mental place to see how things were. At other times, just while they were chasing some wampas, and unfortunately one of my players lost an arm. It's very sad. Got torn off by a wampa, probably in revenge. I was able just to go, okay, so there's like a cat. Oh, there's like a cavern, and they could see the cavern, and then there was a passage that they had come up, and that was just to get them a feel of the scale of it, because I had dragged in like a wampa here, and they could really get a feel that it was a tight space. But that's as much detail as I ever go into. I don't really want to do tactical Maps, I just hate them. I'd rather just go play a war game if I want to do that. But that's useless. What I will do is use the well, there we go. We've scrubbed ourselves off. What I will do is use the range bands, and I am pretty sure, because I have the drag and drop mod installed, I will quite often on some combats, so for the ground, I drag in this range band, and where is it? I hold down Alt, or is it Shift and Alt, or both, and then I kind of get it to the right scale, and then I can put my Wampa on it and put a couple of players on it and their position and or whatever it is, and we can do some combat just within a sense of space here as well, physical space. What else is there? So I have other assorted sort of shapes and structures which I have used for fun, just to show off things, and I try and find really sort of evocative art and try not to make it too literal. That can be quite hard because the art obviously leads you thinking a certain way. Some stuff isn't too bad, like, you know, here's Ada's palace, which is the huts that they're dealing with. His latest obsession, if they go visit Ada in the next session, his latest obsession is these cute little owl things, which his name I've forgotten. This is his assistant, and other stuff happens. There's a dive bar that they visit now and then if I ever need a bar. A droid shop, where I'm pretty sure I have a bunch of machine shop ambience in the background, which I'm quite pleased with. Wonder if you can hear it. Yeah, it's just constant drilling. Here's the hangar for one of the people they work with, and various other locations, you know, as I need them. So we actually you don't need, I think, a lot of scenes for a good Star Wars game. You shouldn't be messing around trying to make battle maps, in my opinion. I just find the combat more enjoyable if it doesn't have it. Yeah, I just want to see if anyone is around. Show off some. Just seeing if any of my players are around. So one of the things I'm quite pleased with actually is the way I handled a mainframe sort of combat, I guess you could say. So let me just get rid of here. So this is a droid player I have, and let's activate the mainframe scene. And I think you can do cool things with here we go. You can do cool things with Foundry that you wouldn't perhaps be able to do on a tabletop in the same way. So in this case, I created an imaginary hacking scene, and let me just configure fog of war. Oh no, where's the fog of war? It's down over here somewhere. So fog of war. Where have I forgotten it? Okay, clear fog of war. So this is the scene that you and I can see as a GM, but if I click on the player, you will see how the player runs things. And so the player logs into the computer, and this was like a big penultimate scene. They were stuck here at the Lost Temple. They were kind of in this doorway. There were the Zissians attacking them. So three of the players were on the between the doorway and the inside door, kind of shooting out, and the droid player is busy trying to hack his way in. And this is what he could see to start with, which was kind of fun, I thought. So he's inside the system, and he knows that he can attack any of these pieces of network for an action. But each of those purple numbers is the dice roll it takes to get to that particular location. So defenses and security are probably pretty important. The cred store is actually, I think, what he went for straight away. So he managed to win a success on that. And the sound effect, of course, doesn't play, probably due to an update. And I ruled that the store opens, and now he has creds. And then I went through and lowered the difficulty So these actually I think were all higher. I've already edited them down. So I lowered the difficulty down to 2 and 1 and 3, and then for his next action he decided to go for like defenses. He's failed a few times. Eventually they're all freaking out, lots of gunfire. He cracks open defenses, and now he can see he can access turrets and droids. And he, accesses the droids and turns them on and, messes around. Or maybe he decides he wants to come up here and access door control. I think that's one of the first things he did, actually. And now he could close and open the in and outside doors. So he sort of locked them away and protected them. And if they did actually have to fight turrets and stuff, he could turn off friend or foe coding, so they would treat them as friends. I kind of messed up the scene a little bit because I let the player basically access everything once he got in the system, rather than maybe saying, oh no, like this you can only access, you can't access this part yet until you're further in the network or in the building. Instead, once they closed the doors, they sort of had infinite time to go and then just crack everything else. So it was a bit like bit stupid of me. But they kind of enjoyed the tension of knowing that the droid was busy trying to navigate this network and hack everything under the time pressure that they had. I actually put all the other players into the scene as well. So I had them all just parked so that at any time they could flick back to the scene and they could be like, come on, Niner, sort it out. What are you doing? Why haven't you beaten them all yet? Which was good fun for all of them, I think. But I think next time what I will do is, if I have to run a scene like this again, I'll make it that some parts of the network are essentially like almost just inaccessible. You know that they're there, but there's essentially why you can't get to that unless you're inside the control room. And then when you're in the control room, so they might have to fight their way to the control room. And then when they get there, suddenly they can hack, or the droid can hack something. And so they have a series of like challenging little games to beat the clock to get this hack done before they're overwhelmed. One of the things you can see here is some custom icons. I actually don't know what that is or why it's there, but there's a few things changed, which was a little annoying. So there's a thing called Condition Lab, and that allows you to set your own, it's one of these mods, it allows you to set your own icons on people. So I use it for setback boost if they're in cover, if they need an upgrade or downgrade. So if one of them rolls really well on the dice and he wants, so yay, Dash rolled really well on the dice and he wants to give Niner a boost, I can just remember that by doing that. Likewise, there's some for, and I can actually, if he got 2 boosts for some reason, I can just do that, or right click to get rid of them, or right click to make it the big icon. So if they kill someone, I usually just do that. If they're in cover, we do that. Maybe he's got a boost for some reason, that kind of stuff. So that's just helpful in a complex combat to keep track of everything. So this whole scene, I'm pretty pleased with it. I think it worked really well. I basically built it in Google Slides, or you could do it in PowerPoint. I put down a background. I put a very transparent white layer over the background so it didn't dominate. Then I made a series of boxes. Then I connected them. Then I made got a series of ticks, connected them. And then when I brought it all into, and I think if you were good with actual network diagram software, it'd be pretty funny as well. Then I brought the whole thing as a picture into Foundry. And then I went through and drew all the walls and doors, which is a terrible experience. Generally it's just a pain, and I don't recommend it. These should all be default sound. Yeah, I didn't hear them make any sound, and I have the ambient doors mod, and the whole point of the ambient doors mod was it made like a wah 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 and bizzle sound when doors opened and closed, which, as you can see, just it isn't playing. So yeah, that's kind of annoying. Maybe I'll crank this up. There we go. No door sounds. Very sad. There's been some updates to mods and things are broken, but I'd fix it if I had to use it again. Point is, you can mess around with ambient doors and do cool stuff. So it's worth talking a little bit about the players, the player character system within the game within the game system that you get in Foundry is pretty clean. To create a new player, I mean, it's not going to generate the player for you. Let's create a player called Bob, and I could create minions or vehicles as well. And we're going to stick him in the player folder. So here's Bob, and now I can choose to give him an icon. I can browse that in different ways. There is tiling software out there, but actually what I use is, I'm going to look, tile, what's it called? No, icon, no. It is called token stamp. That's it, token stamp. Token stamp 2. There you go. Token stamp 2, and you can just drop pictures in there and put borders on them and stuff, and then you just save it out. So for me, token stamp is very effective. I'll just see if I can drag it in over here. So you should be able to see that on screen now. And yeah, you just drag in a picture. Is there one that works? Yeah, let's drag in this guy, drag him around, put a different border on it, change it to, I don't know, pink, whatever, right click, save as, job done. So I find token stamp to be pretty sweet. I've actually got a start.me page, which is called, and it's got a bunch of useful stuff on it. What's it? Where is it? How do I even share this? It's called FFG Resources or something. Oh yeah, cool. I can copy the link to the start to the board, and I can put it into the chat stream if I was not stupid. Bamba, there you go. I've put it in the chat. So that Start Me page has a whole bunch of the resources I've used in general. Just wanted to have one handy when I had some dreams of making a massive videos on this, but I haven't bothered. So why don't I just show those off as well, and let's pull this over. So start.me, I've got a bunch of random adventure resources I found, mostly interesting looking PDFs, and list of planets and moons, name generator, absolutely vital, some other useful terms like a Huttese dictionary, which is fun, so you can throw a few hot words around, art resources like cool ships, a logo designer, company logo designers, so helpful. You can put in a name and it just spits out a fantastic looking brand. Let's have a look at Pirate Partnerships. There we go, Tiny Pirate Partnerships. Wham! We'll just give it a minute. And a galaxy map, and there's old Hut Space by Old Dogs Games. He's got some great little resources. So there's all kinds of quite useful things in there. Foundry resources, which I found helpful. Tools to convert YouTubes to MP3. Don't tell big media that I do that. Token stamp, stuff like that. Photopia, which is where I do all my photo editing if I need it, if it's not being done in sort of PowerPoint or equivalent. And some useful PDFs I really like, and I'm going to talk about some of these. I don't use that many. The Mando one's pretty awesome. Operational costs is really cool, and there's a critical failure ones. Anyway, and here's a bunch of the links to modules that I quite liked. So, do we get a logo yet? Oh, I've got to pick my consulting, business consulting, Pirate Productions, continue. Use these as inspiration. That seems slightly science fiction-y. Yellow, the best in acquisitions. Can't spell. And you'll see how I use this consistently. Generating a logo. Anyway, you got to use all these resources because they're fun. They're fun, and it makes things a lot easier. Hello, Ethan. I'm just showing off how I do some stuff in Star Wars role-playing. So as you can see, Pirate Partnerships. That's pretty sweet. I could use some of those in a game. right? And then you just snap them and grab them. So, yeah. So here we go. We've got a character, and we've got to give him a portrait. There's Bob, and in here, because I've done all the import things that the game system tells you should do on their wiki page, and don't even ask me how. It's just done. I know that under my journal entries, I have character creation. Where is it? No, it's items here. Character creation, species, and I could go in. That doesn't really work for any of those species. Here we go. He looks cool. So we've got Bob. Bob is a human, and it starts to adjust things. Bob is a explorer, and then I have to remember, what does an explorer do? Are they scouts? Yeah, we'll say it's a scout. I can't remember the classes exactly. Explorer, scout. And so then you have your character kind of set up. And then you do the normal character creation stuff that you do. Yeah, well, he's going to be 3 of this and 3 of that. We're going to give him a ranged light. Take that up to 1. He's got a bit of shootingness. He's definitely got a bit of astrogation. He's a pretty good space pilot. So you would mess around with the character sheet in this way. And then you would come through and you could add items. Now, this was the hardest thing. Some of these things I imported from that big import, which I can search, that big, where is it? This Ogdude vehicles or Ogdude adversaries or Ogdude careers, Ogdude item quality. So Ogdude is where you import stuff from. But many I also just hand rolled because I imported them, but they weren't feature complete, like they didn't have pictures. So I made personal weapons, for example, and I found pictures for all of these. So we're going to say that he has a holdout blaster, which is equipped, and then in theory encumbrance will come into play, but it's not always. And he also has, that's tucked in his pants, and he has a blaster pistol on his hip as well. So he has that available to him as well. And I might decide, what else equipment has he got? He's got a backpack. He wears armored clothing, which is equipped, which will affect his soak and defense. He has a comlink, and you can just be, he's just got generic stuff here. My players are not really big into shopping, or at least I haven't let them because I just get bored of it. And they will sometimes, want to do a bit of shopping and pick up a few stim packs and talk to each other about cool shopping trips they're going on. But that's a whole thing you could get into yourself. Personal weapons, equipment I made. Ship weapons I also added from, actually did I create them? I think I just created these, to be honest, because they were, as you can see, you can create it, and the system allows you to create any of these kinds of things. Let's to create these things and then put them in these folders. So that was a bit of a pain. Likewise, I manually did tables myself for all the critical injuries, which, that was also a pain. But what can you do? It's, I think there are ways to import them. I don't know if I actually did in the end. I think I may have just done them manually in a fit of energy, which will never be recreated. So character creation, pretty straightforward. Talents, so as he's a scout, let's say he's picked up a couple of talents along the way, and as you can see, they appear here. In theory, sometimes when you click on these, they will, if they're force powers, then you'll get to see the force power table. Otherwise, you just have to remember you've got it and then go click on Scout to see what it says. Fortunately, however, where it applies to something here, actually do any of them during a chase, rapid recovery, does any of them appear? So sometimes the ones that appear that affect actual rolls by removing dice or adding dice, you end up with a little icon next to them. Heightened awareness. Let me see if I open him again. I might appear. Here we go, Bob. Nope, that's weird. Okay, so some of the talents which do give you bonuses will appear with little icons to help remind you. Otherwise, it's up to the players not to forget. Bio stuff can go here. Edit text can go here, and to put in biographical information. And then you can see further materials here for obligation, duty, or emotional strength or weakness for the various amounts of stuff out there that requires the different games. So obligation, owes Ada the hut favor. That's going to be a 5 obligation, or on the run, and that's maybe another 5, we'll say. And one of the nice things about this is that the obligation actually does come into play through the built-in dicey system thing down here. It's a system feature. So the first thing is, when players join, you can hit the dice button and then roll for your destiny points. I'm just going to pretend you haven't seen this screen. We'll reset them. And then the destiny point dice will roll, and they'll all commiserate over how terrible they're doing or not. And away you go. You've now got the destiny points, and the players can, you can flip them back and forth. Also, as a GM, you can click on this icon. You can mess with these numbers, obviously, but as players connect, you can actually see their obligations, which is really cool. And then there's a whole button which is roll obligation. And then it'll automatically roll obligation for you when all the players are connected, and you'll be able to see what comes up, which is cool. It's always an exciting moment. As you can see on Dash's character sheet, he's got, holy heck, what are all of those for? Oh, he's maimed. That's right. He's brutally injured, but you can see that right now he has a survivor talent, which he's very good at remembering he has, a survivalist, but also there's a big setback dice on him because he's currently lost an arm. And he's blind, so he's in a bit of trouble as our poor old Dash. That Wampa did a number to him, but he's having a vision quest right now, so he's feeling okay. It's going to be exciting for him. So as you can see on all these characters, they have icons. In this case, it tells me that this is that permissions app or mod. It tells me that all of them can see Dash, but only Dash's character, and if the players, you can see them here, only Dash's character can actually interact. So to each other, they can see that they exist, and they get like a brief summary, like they'll see the name and the race, but that's all they see. I could give them more controls, but I don't want to. So for example here, Nina is a character who's a droid who's made up of the parts of 2 assassin droids, and he's now a very friendly and very nice droid with blue eyes, but he's recently had a process undergo where it unlocks the other assassin droid in him, and we've agreed that these will be actually, let's just get off the scene because it's a bit clumsy for this work. So we have Nina A, who's bad scary droid, and we have Nina B, who's the other personality, who's a good friendly happy droid. And so I'm allowing him to essentially now spend experience points between both sides of this tree system. It's a bit of a weird thing to do, but he's really keen on having working out a way to resolve the 2 sides of his personality, essentially. The automated killer droid, which isn't sentient, and Nina the happy nice droid who is sentient. So yeah, along the way my players picked up a couple of speed bikes. I think they stole them off some stormtroopers that had died, and these are just basic equipment that I've imported and probably from Ogdude or made myself, just looking at the book, and I've added basic weapons too. And I think eventually I want to give the players a chance to pimp these out a bit, make them awesome, and take them on a race, because we do have quite good pilots on the team. So Dash and Max are quite good. And they would probably love to have a race, and the other 2 players can help out, which will be fun. Other organizational things I do. So party resources up here. This is a mod that allows you to create resources for the party, as you would imagine. And I can very simply just click add new resource, type in lights. How many lightsabers do we have today? And I'll give it an ID. I could use a picture, and we're going to say the default value is 0, and we're going to leave the min-max value off and allow players to manage lightsabers and don't need an icon for it. And now I have a new resource up here, number of lightsabers, and that could go up or down, right? But we're just going to pretend that doesn't exist. What I've been using, so I've got the PDF import mod, and I have this player reference for something called operational costs. Operational costs actually is quite a chunky and really fun PDF of giving your players the costs of running a ship. I found that running it, some things just got a little bit too much. When you land a ship or when you take a ship off, generally you're about to do something exciting and you don't really want to stop for paperwork. But one of the things I like doing is keeping my players feeling pretty hungry. It makes them make really tense decisions about whether or not they're going to give money to the patron who's demanded a 50%, maybe 60% cut of everything they earned, or whether they're going to lie to him, which is fun because they just get so broke. So as you can see here, and under operating costs, they recommend having a fuel cell, a fuel resource, a food resource. So I've invented this one. This is a spare parts resource, and it goes down when they use it to repair things. This marks the number of hyperjumps that they have made, hyperjump tracking. So they get 1 per, which is probably good to go across to the Firespark to hut space. So if they travel across a sector, I define, this is a sector, then they use it's 1 or 2. So go from inside a region to an inter-region. So if they go from here to here, then this goes up 1. If they go across an entire region, it goes up 2. And then for every 24 hours they travel, it goes up 1. But they've got a slow ship, so that 24-hour route in theory takes 3 days. So it's 3. And that goes up. If it hits 50, they will have serious trouble and their drive won't work anymore and various other things. This is maintenance events. So if they take off from a planet, if they get into a fight, if they have some other collision, if they have too many passengers, then maintenance events happen. And the idea with this is that after a certain period of time, if this gets too high, then they may have to start rolling crits or rolling damage to their ship, or events may happen. So I actually stupidly have not included what happens when things get too high, but yeah, don't worry about it. And the spare parts, every time they repair or service the ship and get rid of a maintenance event, essentially, they drop by 1 spare part. And I think I have that spare parts are 50 credits each at a top port. I've sometimes used them as rewards. So sometimes they've like been able to loot a ruined ship, a wrecked ship, and I let them take a whole bunch of spare parts and some food off the ship, and they felt pretty pleased with themselves for doing that. So that was fun. They've decided they want two accounts. They want the money that they're giving to Ada, their patron. So whenever they get paid, they in theory put 50% aside, or 60%, I can't remember what it was, into this account, and the rest sits in their joint account essentially. They recently started a job for a second patron who kind of half blackmailed them, and that patron doesn't want them to, their main patron Ad in the Hut, to know that he exists. So they've got all this money from that patron, and they just hide it away, and they're pretending they're not going to give obviously any of it to their master. This is their saving fund for a new ship. So if you know the system, you know they're a very long way away from getting it. But I really like the party resources. I have stripped it down a little bit. I've made fuel cell use a little simpler. The hyperspace tracking is a little simpler, and I always also charge them for landing. So they're always charged about 100 credits. If they have a friend, they get charged a bit less, and they get charged for fuel. It just allows them to like barter and beg for favors off people, which is fun. And so try not to exceed maintenance. For 50, adjust maintenance events, so try not to go above 50. Adjust hyperspace, don't go above 20. 50 is the absolute limit. And passengers eat 1 food per week. So then I said a full hyperdrive service, they can pay for it, or they can just do that themselves. So to repair the hyperdrive would cost them 10 spare parts. To repair this would cost them 5. But what I let them do is, if they get successes, then they get less parts. So they often will repair their own ship, and that gives the players with mechanics something useful to do. They'll say, hey, look, we'll stay behind and repair the ship while you guys go, and the face goes and talks to the boss or what have you. And they get time reduction, spare part reduction, or bonuses, consumables can not be used. Yeah, that's kind of, I quite like it. It's relatively streamlined. You can look up the operational cost PDF, and it is kind of fun. There's another one I really liked called Ship Quirks, which I actually turned into a table. It doesn't look like I've loaded it using that PDF loader. Ship Quirks, no. So Ship Quirks is, or Ship Flaws is another PDF, and it gives you weird things that could happen in a cheap ship. So obviously when you buy a ship in Star Wars, the idea is that every ship in the book is essentially brand spanking new, but that doesn't make much sense for something out in the Empire. So you might decide that they have a kind of house rule on the Ship Quirk PDF. It's a fan-made one, that for every quirk, the price of the ship drops 10%. So you could find a real deep discount YT 1300, but it's going to have, maybe it's half price, but it's going to have 5. I'm going to get rid of that jury rig. It's going to have 5 different floors on it, and you can actually drag these onto the actual ship itself. So if it was the Fire Spark, which actually still does have a floor. Oh yeah, it's got this floor. I think they've forgotten that exists, but I can just drag this over here, and now I know it's got blown capacitors, and it's hard to fix. The nice thing about this is that when they go to purchase a ship, the mechanic of the party in theory can do a mechanics check and see if they can figure out what's wrong with it. Some of the flaws are really obvious, like garish paint job. It means I don't know if it's going to come up, but it basically means that the ship has been painted in an awful and obvious way that's going to be a negative on certain things. But other than that, you can click on them and it tells you about them. Poorly repaired hull, reduced armor by 1. Fixing the flaw requires parts with 20% of the ship's base cost and a hard mechanics check. Whoa, that's pretty tough. Shields failing, what is this one? Reduced defensive zones points by 1 until the critical hits. Oh, by the way, I'm running Genesis, so some of these Genesis ship combat, so some of these might look a bit off. But yeah, the ship has no defense. It's kind of tragic. And also, it's currently looking a little battered as well. No strain, but yeah, I don't know why that's 3. Weird. But the hull trauma is still there. So they've got a lot of work to do to repair their ship. It's had a hard time. So if the ship or vehicle has if the ship has suffer 2 points of system strain. All right, I forgot about that. Yeah, okay, it's going to sit on 2 points at all time. So they can repair that. And I've actually, when they first picked up this ship, they did a check. They found there was something wrong with the computer. Maybe it was a glitched Navi computer, but they rolled like a triumph in their scan, in some work on the ship when they did a sort of service to it. So I let them remove one of the flaws that they picked up when they started the ship. But some of them are pretty funny. Like every time you perform an evasive maneuver, the ship crew suffers 1 strain because it's kind of not a very stable ship. And I think that gives ships a lot of character. They can get really mad at the ship for being kind of crummy. And it gives the players a real sense of progress to remove these glitches or have them fixed by NPCs who are doing them favors. That way you're not just piling the players up with money. You can take them some crummy outpost and you save some mechanic's son, and he's like, oh, look, hey, I think I've got some parts that can help you, and the players come out feeling, yay, we got some progress, which is nice. So yeah, in the compendiums, these are all the things I've generally imported. Some of them come default. So the Ogdude ones are what the system requests. And I'm going to jump over to a different soundscape because... Oh, okay, there's a canteen. Yeah, that sounds nice. So yeah, I've had to create a few of these myself. The obligation one I made, which is stupid because the game does it for you when they all log in. But critical injuries, yeah, all that kind of stuff. And the nice thing is they're all draggable onto the characters. The other thing I have is quite an extensive journal area. This is the players have their log here. So one of the players likes to write a little bit every time, and I usually give him a few experience points at the end of a chapter for that, which is nice. And as you can see, I've I've got configure permissions on these so that everyone's an observer except for the guy who wrote them, who's the owner, so everyone can see them. Player reference. These are the things that are useful that I found on the internet, and I've loaded them as PDFs. They're like little summary documents. Sometimes the players do refer to them. If we're really stuck on what to spend advantages and threats on, then sometimes someone will open this document and it's not displaying too well, and they'll have a read. Likewise, the operational cost. Astrogation, I made this little cheat sheet to help me. Astrogation always feels a bit clumsy in the game because sometimes the players want to move really fast, but essentially they have a lot of time to do the astrogation compared to the hours of potential travel. So in theory, a lot of the flights they're doing 6 hours, like 2 days, 3 days. So it takes them an hour or two to get the most optimal route. It doesn't seem worth to roll dice. I haven't quite squared how I want to run this well. I mostly just, if they want to get somewhere fast, I mostly just make them do some kind of test and then we see what happens. Operational costs, we discussed. I made this one up. Player action. This is just things like a summary for maneuvers and actions in combat. Starship advantages and threats. I don't know. I don't really use this one because I use the Genesis rules for Starship, which is here. I made my own version. So this is the ship's action sheet, and that reminds all the players what they can do in the course of flying, because the Genesis spaceship rules. There's some, if you get interested, look up Genesis Star Wars spaceship combat on Google and you'll find various discussions about why Genesis might be more suited. I find the way movement is handled is a bit better. There's more for the pilot to do. Everyone else still gets things to do. And yeah. Oh, a nice thing I found out is that you can specify what type of dice using these bracket icons. I actually made up first, I didn't know that for a while, and I made actual physical image icons for each of the dice. But yeah, you don't have to do that, because when you say it's DI or whatever it was, then they all appear as they should do. Difficulty for DI, there's some guides on the wiki, I think, which tell you what the name is of each dice, so you can put them in a bracket. Weapon qualities, what's this one? Oh, I just made okay, cool. I made myself a cheat sheet because I always forget what the weird different weapon qualities are. And this is a good one. I might actually, the next session for the players is a bit of a rebuild session. So they need to, I think, maybe upgrade weapons and mess around. So I've got some administrative ones. So these are the map entries. So if you remember in the hut space scene, I have a lot of little entries that are little entries like this. So kayaks is some planet. The God's Heart, which is very important to my game, is the sun in the middle there. Where's something with some entries? So they went to Zisia. Here's a whole bunch of stuff about Zisia, and what you'll see is each of these map entries is visible to the players. Sometimes there are notes here that I put in the GM notes section that isn't visible to players, but the players can kind of get a sense of where they are and who they are. Some worlds up here that I've made off in the wilds. So Hansel was, what was this world? I'm trying to remember. Hansel, that's right. One of the players came from there, basically. Yeah, Sulfur, nice one. He didn't come from there. He was a settler, a colonist worker. He worked for a settler company, and that was based in Hansel until there was a disaster and it kind of destroyed the colony. Dawn is where one of their friends who set them up to be pirates went and lived. That was a very funny scene when they realized they accidentally engaged in piracy. It's deep in the Outer Rim, and I haven't put any notes because I know everything about it. And this world, they don't know what it is, but the Imperial's really interested in it. So you can kind of drag stuff out here. I've got notes. These notes are largely from Tim, who runs Old Dog Games. They're from him. So here's Sirlur, and it tells me that some information about it. So occasionally, if the players want to be real butts, they will throw me for a loop, and they'll say, they were here, like they were down this way the other day or the other session, and they're like, we don't want to go home yet. We want to go to, where's somewhere nearby? Oh, let's go to Vodran, and let's go and hang out at some random place that they read about in one of my stupid notes, which will teach me for making notes. So the larger capitals, I've got more. So Quinn, their home station, obviously there's quite a lot here, and there's a lot of GM notes because players, if you're watching this, look away, because oh yeah, I haven't checked some of these. I should check some of these again. Some of these are mine. Some of them these are from Tim at Old Dog, and I make notes. I also have, it's not on me, I have a little red diary where I scribble extra notes in it. So I quite like the way Tim provides ideas for kind of special scenes. What was that? Something went beep. Oh, God knows. He's provided lots of little ideas for scenes, which I think is quite cute, and in here for special characters as well. That's all in his PDFs, and I just lifted them out and stuck them on my map because I thought it was cute. So that's my map. I think it's nice for players to have a real sense of place and space, where they are within a system. They really have only been Quinn to Zisia. They have been up around this area a little bit, and back to Quinn, and they're constantly sort of just doing this little triangle and zipping around. Oh, they've been up to Bunta. That's where we had all kinds of fun with a pod racing community and whole Yojimbo. I basically stole the plot of Yojimbo, if you've ever seen that movie, except they weren't the hero, Yojimbo. They were people who got in the way of the hero. So the hero was where is he? Where have I put you? There we go. So here's Dumby, which is I sort of photoshopped a cut down combat droid onto a pit droid. So they have Dumby and they have their friend Zalbaka, who's actually unbeknownst to them, a Jedi, but he's very, very discreet. Or Force user, I wouldn't even necessarily say he's a Jedi. And one of the nice things you can do, if you didn't know, is you can go view character art, and then you can push show to players, and it pushes it out to them in the big picture, which is cool. So in my story, Dunby actually folds up and lies on Zalbaka's shoulder, a little bit like a kind of a pauldron, like armor, because I didn't want to have to do a Wookiee's voice like ours. So instead, they meet this Wookiee who is sulking in a bar because these players have turned up and kind of got in the way, and of his plan to cause the two gangs in the town to like take each other out and free the township a little bit and get on with his personal job that he has to do there, which is unrelated to anyone else. And this little, he's got this piece of armor on the shoulder, and then the head pops up and starts talking to the players. And it's, oh, hello there, I am Dumby. I am very excited to meet you. And that way I only have to occasionally go roar for Zalbaka, and then Dumby does all the translating, and Zalbaka just looks meaningfully, and Dumby does useful little computer things, which is very entertaining. And it gave me a chance to have a droid that is related to my player character's droid, through reasons, and he found that very exciting. So yeah, that's what I do for that. Yeah, and so creating NPCs is a bit of a pain. There's not really like an NPC character sheet. As you'll see here, these are all just player character sheets that I just randomly throw together. The other option is to create minions. Some of these I've ended up accidentally creating as minions. Maybe none of them here. Some of them I haven't even bothered to put much on. They haven't really got stats because I just don't generally need them. Within the game, if we were to go back to town market, let's go to a town market scene. With some of them, what you can see is if I get rid of my players, I'll leave that little combat circle tile in. Maybe we'll even make it cool. And I wish this would not. See, it snaps, but the lock view doesn't work. So we've got this combat tile. One of the nice things with that Genesis token is that I can drag on like some Trandoshan thugs, and they get a little 2 next to them because these are minions. There's 2 of them at any one time. If I up the quantity, wow, now there's 3 of them, 30 wounds, a bunch of soak, and did I not do it proper? Okay, no, let's just do it this way. Trandoshan thugs, 3 of them, and now I drag them on, and that'll update to 3. Cool. So that works really well. I think that's yeah, this whole system works really nicely. These guys are easy enough to make. As you can see, ones that I intend to fight, I've created a token for. So there's both this view, and then there's a token icon, and you have to be quite fiddly. You have to make sure you click on the person here, prototype token, appearance, and then change it to the one with the, you know, the nicely pretty out circle around it. So, you know, I can put him out like this. And in this case, this guy has status effects applied to him. He is basically, I think, dead at the time. So at the time of calling, he got himself deaded, so I can undo that. And I have them set up so that in this case, these guys have their wounds, because they're minions, with the number of them over the top. And as they take wounds, if I give them 20 wounds, then they're down. And for some reason that hasn't updated, because it's weird. Oh, 2 alive. If it goes up to 21, it'll drop down to 1 alive. But that one hasn't updated. That's a shame. And for this guy, it will be both strain and wounds, because he's not a nemesis. He's the one below nemesis, the named NPC, basically. So that's pretty straightforward. Yeah, so I guess anything else to talk about here? Under here, so we've got these map entries and opening crawls. You can actually do a whole opening crawl sequence, and I am loath to start it. Is it that one? No, it is that. It looks like the opening crawl of Star Wars, and you can change the words on it. I'm reluctant to do it because it will kick into the Star Wars music. Maybe I can just do a briefly. And if I hit F5, so this is all configurable, and it's one of those FFG enhancement mod things. Okay, I pressed F5 before I got hit by anything too bad to refresh. Okay, so as you can see, I did that for the very first, and it takes so long. It's like a whole minute, 2 minutes maybe. So I don't do that very often. Maybe I'll do one for a chapter bookmark. Oh, actually, why am I beginning combat? Let's get rid of that. Yep. So under here as well, so we have these administrative useful things: opening crawls, episode 1. You can see that for pick a pocket or 2, one thing counts as episode 0, and there's a little picture. And the nice thing is the picture there, basically the text rolls, and when the text finishes, there's a panning motion, you know, sort of in the Star Wars, where it looks down to the planet. Donk. So you could put a planet icon in there, and it will kind of scroll down to the planet, which is just awesome. Or you can just put in a space station, and then scrolls down to the space station. So that was a really fun way to start. GM reference. So this is where I keep notes. I have no idea what some of these notes are. Hut Space Factions. Oh, this is from Old Dog Games. So this is Tim's work. I keep this in here apparently I keep it in here twice. Here's operational costs, which has a whole table that some kind person on the internet actually went to the trouble of making interactive for me. And then I probably haven't used, because I got the party resources mod, and it was way easier to handle. Operational costs, failures. Oh, that's cool. I do have a resource for this. Oh, good to know. I knew I did it somewhere. Precise calculations. What's this one? Oh, this is like just a guide to a whole bunch of worlds. I guess if you didn't have your own maps, you could steal some of them. Most of these don't appear in the hut space. Ship quirks. That was that cool PDF I told you about, with all the different things that can go wrong and how ships might get flaws. It's really cute. And this is some lore that I copied down because I needed to know it to do with the huts. And then I've got hut space. So all of the corporations in the game, these are all logos generated by those logo systems, except some of them are real Star Wars things. And I generally create notes on all of the companies because they're all linked. Many of them are linked in some kind of disgusting, weird way. So, for example, New Horizon Colony Administration was the company that one of my players worked for, doing colony administration work. And under the GM notes, I can see that because I dragged the reference in. House Tingaratha, which is actually the house the Corellian house that destroyed my player's house. He's the child of nobility kind of thing. It's a touch Dune, I would say. The house actually owns the company he works for without either of them realizing it. And so Ziva Dynamics, Ziva Dynamics is a corporation, and Ziva Dynamics owns a couple of different companies, and they are all linked a bit to the Black Sun criminal network. So the players can't see all my player notes always. Well, they can't see the GM notes ever, but they do get familiar with the companies because things happen like, I'll explain it maybe with a drawing. So each of these is kind of relevant. Down here, we've got stuff that I generally don't show the players. That's why you can see the icon shows. So the Dark Fang Pirates, they know who they are, and they know that they're tied to the Black Sun criminal organization. They just don't know themselves much about Black Sun, and they don't know who runs it and the enterprises that it has and so on. No GM notes there because that's hidden from the players. Imperial Docks at Queen Station, that's just other organizations, and there's an NPC that they can't see. Imperial Docks against the Grand Plot. So I have multiple factions. I might explain how that works. I think that's a fun way of running things. So this for me is enough to run the game, and I think it feels a lot less cumbersome than dealing with some other systems out there. Like, I like to run very story-based games, very theory of the mind games, and the system naturally suits it. So I don't have a player on, but if anyone is out there would like, I can run you guys through a combat just to give you a feel for how things work in the system. But where am I? Yeah, I think I will do that. So one of the things you should always do in combat, okay, so there's a YouTuber you should know about. I'm going to type his name out, Rune Slinger. He has absolutely fantastic videos on Star Wars and Star Wars role-playing game, and really interesting ways, really nice, detailed, thoughtful videos about how to run games. And I think he's fantastic. I'm just going to delete Bob. You'll get out of here, pal. So let's take a couple of my player characters. These two are pretty capable combat guys, and they can definitely take on these individuals. These individuals, so the scene, except for Dash right now, who's horribly wounded, we'll forget about that. We'll pretend he's fine. In fact, maybe we'll put someone who isn't horribly wounded out because I don't want to mess with the character sheet. So we have these two characters, and what we could say is, every combat should have a purpose. So we might say these guys are in a market, and I might describe the market, and it's going to align pretty much with this beautiful visual art here, which I think is fun. And in Star Wars, you should also be very good. Yeah, you're right, Cyril. He's just amazing. I've watched all of his videos multiple times, some of them. You should have a purpose to your combat. Why are they here? It's not just a meeting of some thugs. They should be trying to gain something through the combat. The combat should be an impediment, a barrier, a turning point in the story. Something's happening. Why is this combat happening? It gives them more reason to do things than just shoot. Or, maybe they've got to run away. Maybe they've got to meet someone. Have a think about your combat. Don't just make it as a roadblock for no real reason. So I like to have it very visual. I don't like a very theory of the mind. So I might say, okay, you're standing at the left side of the, standing at the side of the market, and two Trandoshan, some Trandoshan thugs and their sergeant come around the corner, and they in the far end of the market, they point you out and they go to shoot you. Now in the system-wise, it's real easy. You just select everyone, hit the combat button, and now we're going to roll dice. And for the two sets of NPCs, they have actually everyone's going to be a vigilance roll. So I'm pretty sure I can click a button to roll all of them, but I'm not going to bother making it fancy. We'll just do it like this. Vigilance, everyone's surprised. So we roll, and then we have the turn order. So it's going to be, PC, NPC, what have you. the PCs decide that really Grillo has the best shot. He's got a blaster, and he's gonna act first. He's gonna slip behind a barrier, and you really want the players to tell you what they're going to do. The system gives them the option to do a maneuver, 2 maneuvers if they take strain. So I'm going to slip behind a pillar, get into cover, and then I'm going to take a strain to aim at these guys and shoot them with my blaster rifle while screaming obscenities at them or something, right? So I know that they are actually, that's extreme range. That seems a little ridiculous. They're at long range, so it's a 3 purple dice roll. He's really quite a skilled character at this point. He's aimed once, but I'm going to say, hey, look, I want you to upgrade the difficulty because the market's really crowded. People see this blaster come out, people starting to suddenly panic and freak out, and I'm also giving you a setback dice because you're going to have to aim real careful to not hit another person. Roll the dice, and that's at FFG enhancements. Just made all the bang bang. Check failed, 3 failures and 2 advantages. That's pretty normal. You get these weird things like this. So this is a really common one for us. People miss, but because of the system, they have advantages. And I always leave it up to the players. They're the ones who have to tell me what did you do. Now they will often click help spending advice or help spending. Weirdly, this might be a Game Master only button. They might get it as well, I'm not sure. And in this case it says perform immediate free maneuver. They're not interested in that. Add a negative to the next check or to an allied's check. And so quite common, they'll say, my blaster shots go wide, but I shoot out a basket and it's hanging from the roof and it's full of fruit, and the fruit just like rain down all over the Trandoshan thugs, and they over this guy, over the sergeant, and he's like he's totally distracted, and he's gonna have a black dice on him for the next time he acts. It's like, oh yeah, that's really cool. And we have a lot of fun just doing these kind of back and forth storytelling, and rather than be a system which is totally freeform, is like where you just characters are telling you action hero stuff. Weird things can happen and weird dice can happen, and they have to fit it into a story. So hey, okay, this guy advances, he stands back and he gets into cover. He screams at his men to approach, and he's like he decides to shoot at Max. Have I even given him a weapon? Yeah, I do. So he's got a blaster pistol, and Max hasn't acted yet. It's 3 purple. And it's a really busy market, and we decided, of course, that they have the same penalties. People are running to and fro. Does he hit? He's going to destroy Max, I'm sure. Oh, completely failed. So that's fine. We sometimes do an escalation, where if there's an exact failure, we allow them to escalate. And what that does is we do the same again, another purple, and we allowed to upgrade ability and upgrade difficulty. So it's a double upgrade just to get something to happen, and that always can go really bizarre. Okay, success, advantages, and triumph. Wow, that's a really good one. So you hit him for 2 with the blaster pistol. 2 + 6 is 8. Critical of 3. So I can then apply damage, and I've got a macro that does that. And this is stuff you'd ask the Discord for. And you'd put in a big number, and it would automatically take into account Max's soak, give him damage. I would also apply a critical injury because of the triumph, but unfortunately something is broken in the recent update. So in this case, I would just go to the critical injury table. I'm going to remove the bonus. When they were fighting the Wampa, it wrecked them. And so it's just a straight critical. He's got a head ringer, and I'd drag that onto his character sheet, and that's a critical injury he can carry. And when we spend the advantages, 1, it's probably not very much to allied characters next check. Yeah, okay, I might say, because they're my bad guys, I'll say his, because I'm the one who decides that stuff. I'll say, sometimes they're the players themselves will tell me something really funny they think should happen, or something really appropriate, and it's like much worse or much better than what I had in mind. I'll let them do it. But I say, his calls, like, they excite the Trandoshans. They're going to do their thing. The Trandoshans act next. They're going to get a bit closer. They're just going to charge. They're inspired. I think they can do 2 maneuvers. Who knows? They're charging to short range anyway. He's hanging back. And then no, well, I didn't kill them, they're not dead. And then the next NPC, the next PCX. Whoops, I didn't begin combat. There's no real functional mechanical stuff here like there is in a D20 system. It's just a tracking tool, and that's all we want it for anyway. So Alt click targets them. He's selected, they're targeted. Max is not the best shot, but he opens up with their blaster pistol. They're just charging, let's just say, in the open, but again, there's now people fleeing everywhere. It's only a 1 purple difficulty shot. And he's just gonna aim. He might aim twice. He's gonna stand his ground, and he's not even gonna get into cover. He's just gonna start pinging at them. Oh, and he could have maybe flipped a light side or something. So yeah, he's done 11 damage, which will probably not do that much. Critical of 3, and he's got 5 successes as sod all. So yeah, so the combat would go on. He would engage. I usually would just drag him off to one side to say, yeah, they're engaged in hand to hand. What are you going to do? So on and so forth. Probably get wrecked at this point. And the combat goes back and forth. And the players are actually mostly D&D players traditionally. One of them's played quite a lot of different games, and the others have not. And they really, really enjoy the way the dice roll, the stories that can come from it. And, so maybe Grillo decides, okay, so these guys made it to short. That was a pretty terrible shot. We might also play this through a little bit. So it's going to apply 11 damage. Doesn't even take one of them down. So, and I get them to describe the, what are you doing? He goes, I might ping the lead one in the arm, but it doesn't seem to slow him down at all because they can see this not going down. And now it's end of this round 2, sorry, and it's Grillo's turn. Grillo, we decided, was in cover somewhat. His downgrade. Did we even use that? Did we forget to use it? I think we forgot to use it. Never mind. His downgrade didn't do nothing. These two are about to be engaged because he's still in the middle of the street. So Grillo's going to take a close range shot, and he's like, he'll be like, I line up a close shot. I say there's still people running around the market. He's going to flip a light side point to give him even more dice, and what happens? 2 successes, a threat, and a triumph. So 2 successes, so that's immediately going to be 11 damage. So that's 11 damage. Whammo, that drops almost one of them. I'm going to drop one more by adding another 9 damage. No, what was it? 21. If I go down to 20, it's only because of 21. So I add another damage, so we've dropped one of them due to the critical, the triumph. He wants to use that to knock these guys down, but he's got a threat. And I might say that your screaming has you've had to step out of cover this range of bad stuff that's happened. You're no longer in cover. You've had to get, because he might describe what his shot, he shoots one of them, drops him, and the next dude he drops straight in the head. And I say, okay, to get that shot you had to step out of cover for a moment, and that's going to give Pecht not have a cover bonus against you. I wouldn't normally take away player agency, but that's sometimes you just make it work. Otherwise I'd give him cost him an extra strain. Maybe I'd cost him a strain. Yeah, that's fine too. Pecht shoots him with his Pecht shoots him with his blaster pistol. He's kind of worried now. Again, I'm still making this market really busy. Pecht is going to aim once. I think that's fair. And there's no other penalties. Bang. And it does terrible. But he's got lots of advantages. So we might just say he's been so cowardly, he's really tucked himself away. And he's made it really hard for him to be seen or something, and we'll make the next shot a penalty against him, whoever shoots. Bang, bang. These guys are going to charge. They engage him in some kind of melee. So what even is that? That's claws. They only have claws. Transition thugs. Is that all I've given them? Nah, yeah. I guess one dude, he just charges and slams into poor old Max, who's not really designed for this stuff, and apparently failed, but with 4 advantages. Wow, 4 advantages is pretty sweet. They have disorient and knockdown. 4 advantages. What would I even do? Target is disabled. yeah, I could say like they've pinned him against the wall. He's completely like, Max, you're just busy like struggling. You know, he might even suggest it, because the thing that is awesome about this system is the players get to roleplay in combat or in situations what their character would do. So Max is like a bit of a charmer. He has a pistol. He's not that great with it, and he often kind of flails about a little bit. So instead of me being like, oh, you're wrestling on the ground, he'd probably say, oh, Max, I'd say, oh, your character's going to be like completely just like out of action, like he can't shoot back, and he might be like, oh, Max is stuck in a corner screaming help, help, and just trying to hold them off with his pistol while this guy is like trying to sweep him. You know, it's that kind of stuff. So the players get to be really evocative. Grillo is legendary for his kick, because he once rolled a triumph in close combat on a rooftop, and he said Grillo takes a cool, you know, drops low and just boots this and kicks up and just boots this thug off the roof onto the ground, and that became like his signature move. So Grillo's like, yeah, I'm just going to shoot into combat probably when it's his turn. Oh no, Max can't do anything. That turn goes through. He's already had his. That's just fighting. So Max is now going to shoot into combat. So ranged heavy versus melee range versus engage, got to upgrade the difficulty. So this is normally 2 from memory. Blaster rifle, I think, is 2. We upgrade the difficulty, and he might say, I get in real close, so I'm not even like, I get close, so I aim once, I move close, so that I'm not any other people around me. But the upgraded difficulty is because he could shoot his buddy, and then he might probably at this point finish off his 3 successes. That'll almost certainly wipe those guys out. So and he'll describe that in a very Grillo kind of fashion. He'll probably like, I just grab the back of the last one's head, pull him off, and just like hold the blaster against him and fire. So the story system with Fantasy Flight, it really allows the players to take action, and you've got to set that as a game master and tell them that that's your expectation, that they will narrate as much as they want. And we've just had a lot of fun with it. It's just been so fun, because they've been able to really explore their characters through their actions, rather than have me as a game master say, oh yeah, you hit him, you do this, you do that. They know what the outcome of the dice is. The dice give you enough constraints that you can role play around them without it just being a made up thing. I once saw a Let's Play video of not Blades in the Dark, the space one. It's completely escaped me. And it felt very much like a collaborative, just sit around and tell a story. And I don't have a problem with that, but it just didn't. I didn't feel the tension that you get when you have limits. So, you know, we've had dice where there's been a combat and they've had a triumph, a success, and a failure. Like they've failed with a triumph and a despair, all in one combat. They're like, what do we do with that? And then they're like, okay, so, you know, I blast this dude, but my gun breaks, but I don't actually hit him. But on the other hand, I've collapsed the ice cave where the Wampas at. So the Wampas are now kind of stuck behind this and can't kill us because we've just lost a dude with an arm. And so it kind of, you know, I've overheated the pistol. It doesn't work. The ice caves come down around us. We're safe, but, you know, so it became it gives them a chance to tell fun stories. And we've used it, you know, you get not just combat. We have had really interesting dice results on a computer hack. I think a despair and a triumph on a computer hack, where it was, okay, you've booted the counter hack out of the system on your triumph, but you've also fried the Navi computer. Like, yeah, so the ship that you've boarded is now completely incapable of hyperdrive till you repair the system. There's a counter going down, which I showed earlier, like there's some despair counter that's just ticking up and you don't know what to. You know there's a kicked counter hacker out, or the other person who was trying to counter hack you guys, so you got the information, but everything's gone a bit worse as well. So yeah, that allowed the players to do that, which was awesome. I thought it might be fun to talk about how I built this system, or this campaign, and I think it works well for, get out the Wacom, I think it works well for Age of the Empire games. So the way I've done it, and I think this is something that people should think of doing is I essentially have several major factions, and of course it doesn't want to draw, and I'm just gonna, so over here we have hut. That's terrible. So this isn't like all the huts. This is just one hut family. What are they? God, I've got them here. Where are my NPCs? Queen Station, Adder the hut, and Adder is, what is he? Disgelic. So we've got Disgelic clan huts, and they're and then we over here we have Imperials, but these aren't all the Imperials. These are the Imperials from down in hut space. This is Moff Hydra from down in Teth. Okay, yep. So we have them, and we have some factions, some criminal factions. So we have Black Sun, and we have Tenlos, which are some criminal factions. And what I sort of decided is to set things up with, and we have some corporate factions as well, which are kind of, there's a few of them out there. Oh, and there's also rebels, just somewhere over here, just on their own, doing their own thing. We'll see if the players get involved with them. And what I decided was that this is like 2 after Yavin, 2 after Battle of Yavin. So there's a few things that are kind of stable. So this relationship, the Hutts and the Imperials, are pretty stable. And the Hutts and have various relationships with Black Sun. These guys don't like each other at all. And the Hutts obviously have links to corporates, and they have some links into those. And, you know, it's going to be relationships here. And the Rebels are a little bit of a spoiler faction off to one side. They don't do a lot right now in the game, and they're like obviously at war with the Imperials and a bit neutral to everyone else. And what I decided was that the Imperials have a goal. So I think you set up a situation which is kind of fragile, and you think about what would be within your, and it could be a massive inter-system stuff, or it could be on a planet or within a village, right? And then you decide, okay, so this is the status quo, and it's kind of fragile. So over here, for example, there's the other Hutt family, which from memory is the one with Jabba in it, Abadi or whatever it is. Anyway, these two families do not like each other at all. That's some historic stuff in there. You can read about it on Wikipedia and what have you. So I decided the family who runs Queen Station, the Disgelic Adder the Hutt, they don't like this group over here, and vice versa. The Hutt, Jabba's clan has 2 people on the clan council, and that's unusual. So the Disgelics are jealous. They used to be in ascendancy, but now they're not, and Hutt's clan now in ascendancy. So what I decided was the Imperials are going to throw everything up in the air. So what they've done essentially is they're researching. So the Teth Moff Hydra's guys are researching the legends of the Hutts. So in theory, there's this sun called the God's Heart, and the God's Heart is this pulsar that the Hutts kind of worshipped as sacred for various long, complex reasons. And every time they monitor every movement of the sun, of this pulsar. That's a thing that's kind of secret. A lot of the Hutt lore is kind of supposed to be kind of hidden. No one really knows it because the Hutts just don't see the need to tell anyone any of this, obviously. So you can make it up as a GM really happily. And I decided that the Hutts do pay quite a close attention to it. They attach some spiritual value, even if not everyone believes it. It's just kind of tradition. And the Imperials have figured out something here, that there's a thing here they should study. So over the course of the game, we've had 16 episodes. The players have bumped into the Hutts on Zissia. Sorry, the Hutts, the Imperials on Zissia, and they were extracting data from a ancient Hutt temple, which is why they were originally sent there in the first place, because their patron was like, there's something going on here, I want you to go find it out, and you're disposable. And then they've bumped into the Hutts, so that the Imperials sending some supplies out. They accidentally pirated that ship, and it's to some ancient world they don't know about, so they know there's something funky going on, but I've dripped it into them very slowly, because that's their they are not central to the story yet. And what the Imperials want to do is destabilize. They want to make a device to destabilize, and they know there's an ancient race might have the power to destabilize the God's Heart, cause it to do some weird wobbles. And they want to be very discreet, and they think those weird wobbles will make prophecies that the Hutts believe, that if the God's Heart does weird stuff, pulses in a weird way, that the Hutt societies will have all this drama and tension, and then the Imperials will be able to get in. Because whenever the Imperials have tried to take over Hutt space, the Hutts, even though they hate each other, they hate being told what to do more, and they would fight back. So they want to destabilize Hutt society by causing the star to do something weird, and they're going to do that with some ancient device. Along the way, there's drama because Queen Station itself is operated by, it's actually not really there, it's operated by, actually is it? Adder the Hutt, Disgelic clan, by an underboss to Adder the Hutt, who, he actually is on the council, a Black Sun Vigo, and Admiral Larry Destra of the Imperial Navy as well. The funny thing is, I've got this cute idea that this admiral does not really approve of the of Moff Hydra's plan. So at some point, the players may be recruited by one faction of the Imperials to be spoilers to another faction of the Imperials, which will cause them intense angst, which I find will be very funny. That'll be a bit discreet. Prior to an explosion, which the players were actually accidentally involved with when they were young kids, there were other people on this board. And in particular, there was a guy from Interplanetary Holdings, and that's another corporate that has been on the way out, basically. And Interplanetary Holdings and other people lost power, and now the only three people. So this guy these three guys are the only people who control the station now. So Interplanetary Holdings, he's their new patron. The players are actually really terrified of him because I made him sound like famous German director who was in Mandalorian, so they're convinced he's bad, but he actually is the only thing that's probably closest to on their side right now, and he's trying to, as Interplanetary Holdings is, did I say it was 10 loss? Where have I got it? 10 loss. Yeah, so 10 loss Syndicate do not like Black Sun, so the Hutts are very much, the station are aligned with them. He doesn't like them. They want to go to war. So there's kind of going to be this growing tension that goes back and forth here. There are other corporates around, and essentially the Imperial actions are going to throw everything into a state of chaos. And I like that as a structure, because then the players they'll figure out eventually what's happening. And it's not clear that the Imperials are wrong. Because the players hate the Hutts. The players just found out that their Hutt patron, who used to be the patron of the kid gang they were in, so in case you haven't recognized it, this is Oliver Twist. The origin story for all the players is basically they were in an Oliver Twist-like gang, and it got deaded. They got their boss, their father figure, got arrested and executed for a bomb plot that was actually a trick that the Hutts set up to kill off this leader, and the players got implicated in putting the bomb in. So the original, the leader before the current 10 loss leader. So, their plan is going to be incredibly destabilizing. The question is, if they side with the rebels, is that destabilizing plan good for the rebellion? I don't know yet. It might not be. They might decide that the plan's terrible, in which case they're helping their Hutt bosses to stay stable, which seems weird. They might decide they really like the 10 loss guy who they're currently working for and want to screw everyone else over, in which case they'll support the plan to destabilize these guys and try and take the Black Sun Syndicate down at the same time, which would be kind of funny, because then one of the players is he's like an Imperial soldier, scouts trooper runaway. So it's like they may decide that they want to support the Imperial plan, which will be very funny, because natively they're going to think they don't want to. They have met the Zalbaka, who's the Wookiee, who is a rebel operative, and his droid friend. If they side with them, then they may want the plan to happen so that they can take advantage of the ensuing conflict, which may be immoral. I don't know, you see. So I think get a bunch of factions. My advice for setting up a campaign is get a bunch of factions that are friendly with that they're in a status quo situation. Have some of those factions have internal politics. So even within the Hutt clan, so Ada the Hutt and his minion, Lepto, and Martina, his assistant, from memory, Lepto is not... like, he's quite up and comer. Like, he probably would want to seize power on his own. So even within the factions, you can very easily make up little stories to add extra flavor or indications. And I think I think this is a really fun way to run a campaign. There's a lot of stuff the players just don't really quite know what's going on, so they know that this Imperial's up to something because the Hutts have indicated that as much as anything. They accidentally pirated an Imperial ship full of not colony supplies they thought it was, but exploration supplies, which is very odd. And they accidentally have run into the rebels at least once. They accidentally delivered fuel to a rebel supplied dump and got out by the skin of their teeth. It made them very nervous. They met Zalbaka, the Wookiee, who they kind of have suspicions of. They think he maybe is rebel, I think. I don't know if the characters think that, but the players do. And so they know there's all these moving parts, there's things happening, and they don't understand them, which is pretty fun. My other big advice is the advice you get with all good stories is get the players to give you decent backgrounds. Dash gave me some background, and we've actually been able to use that to manipulate a lot more. Nine has given me lots and lots and lots of story. He wrote up, which was really cool, and we really worked that into a whole thing. And so did Max. So Max's character has a whole story of Corellian intrigue behind him, and I was able to pull that into the story as we played it through. My Grillo player is a little newer, so he hasn't done a lot of background, and that's made it a little harder to give him cool things to do, but I think he's just enjoying the ride. So that's we've had a lot of fun. This is the guy who accidentally got them into piracy. So it's probably what there is to say about running games of Star Wars in this. I found it to be really good. We use Discord for all our voice and talking, and usually I put the camera on so I can wave my hands around like a good GM should. I've got all the resources really I need within the environment here. The scenes are really easy to set up. To make a new scene, if maybe I wanted to make a scene on Horizon's Edge, we'll call it blah blah blah. Actually, there we go. And then it's just a matter of choosing the background image, backgrounds. Here, I'll choose one of my Cthulhu ones. There we go. Grid. I do lots of theatre of mind, so mine are almost always gridless. Okay, so let's have a look at this. And once you get these set up, I want lock view, I want it centered. If lock view works for you, fit inside. And then I can come into this scene as well and choose like ambience. I want to have scene playlist Cantina starts playing because I've set that up already. And along the way, I like to do things which you probably didn't notice, but I like to put in a few, might put in a light. And it's going to be a light animation. It's going to be a torch. No, and a basic configuration, light color, sort of bright yellow, intensity. There you go. You can kind of see it flickering. So I might just, Control C, Control V, and just drop these everywhere. I don't know, you just put a few around the place. And you can fiddle with these quite a bit, which I did. It's a bit hard to see, but in my ship scene, I'll show you in a second again, you have these lights actually all over the show. And they just add just a little something. I think it's really fun. A little bit of movement. And if I go back to the Fire Sparks Ship Lounge, you can actually see that this is an asset I dug up from somewhere. And there's actually a light attached to this as well. There's lights all over. And in theory, they should be doing little flashes and flashes and animation intensity. There we go. And there's a bluish light down here. And that just, yeah, gives it that nice sense of place and presence. Not much else to mention. A lot of things, Maestro config, critical failure, you can set up playlists for certain things. Obviously I don't use it for some reason. And yeah, there's now a card system, which I don't use. It's a new feature in this version of Foundry. So I do highly recommend it. I think this is a pretty straightforward sort of tool. It's really attractive, works really well. It's really nice and moddable. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to take any. I've been rambling along for like hours now. You poor buggers if you've stuck around for ages, and if you're going to come back and watch this. But I hope it's been enjoyable, and yeah, I'll stick around for a couple of minutes in case there's any questions. Anyone has anything to say? It's looking pretty quiet out there. So that's probably enough from me. I'll answer some questions in the comments if any come through from folks. Don't know if I'll bother streaming this again. There's a lot of people doing really good guides, but I just wanted to show how I run things because it just works really well. I better get rid of all of this before the players see it next game session. And no, not all of it. I'll come do that later. So thanks very much. I hope you've had an interesting time, and I'll catch you all later. Goodbye. Oh, nice one. All right, not quite goodbye. Now it's goodbye. Let me know what you do. I'm curious to hear. Come back sometime and comment and just tell me what new things you picked up or what things you tried. Yeah. See ya.